to go to court is Dr. Usman Bugaje, a political activist and civil society leader. Good morning, Dr. Bugaje, and thank you for joining us on the morning show.
Good morning, Ruben.
Good morning, sir. Well, very quickly, the Goodluck Ebele Jonathan Foundation just returned from a conference, a workshop in Ghana, where the issue of electoral reform came up, the issue of accountability, the issue of making democracy work for the people, were the major issues addressed by Bishop Matthew Hassan Kuka, who was the guest speaker, President Olusegun Obasanjo, who was the chairman of the occasion, President Mahama, who hosted the event. So you see that across Africa, democracy appears to be in trouble. And we are preparing in Nigeria for the 2027 elections. Do you think that Nigeria's Electoral Commission is preparing for electoral reform, along with other institutions who are involved in that group? The second question is, what next after Professor Yakub Mahmood, whose tenure is ending at the end of this month? What kind of INEC chairman would you like to see? A few minutes earlier, before you joined us, I said, well, I can run the election for Nigeria, proposing myself as the next INEC chairman, but that's on the lighter side. But what would you like to see after Yakub Mahmood going forward in INEC and about electoral reforms, making the votes count?
Well, thank you very much. There are two questions, and I have a third issue that I think, Ruben, you need to address. But let me start with the questions you have raised. I think first, the issue of INEC. I think everybody is fairly aware that INEC, as presently constituted, has lost a lot of credibility. And it is very important that the institution gains this credibility. Otherwise, the stability of the country is going to be threatened, because when you have institutions that are not delivering, and especially a key institution like INEC, and if this failure continues, then it will erode not only, confidence in INEC, but confidence in democracy itself. And when that happens, you know the consequences. So let me come back to INEC. I think there are amendments that the whole country is waiting for. For example, that amendment, which I think late President Buhari refused to give assent to, which mandates INEC to use electronic electronic tools and to use technology in delivering the result, is still pending. But more importantly, why should the president, whoever is the president of the country, who is an interested party in the election, be the one to propose the head of INEC? I think late Uwais committee has made very good recommendations, which have been blocked by those who are interested in manipulating INEC. I think we have to rescue INEC by making sure that the head of INEC is not appointed by a sitting president who is going to be interested in election. So there are a number of things that needs to be done. I'm not sure there is sufficient time for us to raise that, but I think the key issues are two. One, that INEC's credibility is at stake, and two, we have got to insulate INEC from political interference. If that doesn't happen, then it is the democracy that is holding the country that's being actually run down. And when that happens, there are consequences. The second question, if I remember correctly, which you raised, is where do we go from here? Considering what former President Jonathan said. And I think it ties down with the issue that I really think you should be raising, because the whole gathering in Accra is around the crisis of democracy. that democracy is not delivering the expectations of the people. And in Nigeria, if you take the statistics from 1999 to date, that's about 25 years. If you take the indices of development, whether you are taking the paternal and maternal mortality rates, or if you are taking the if you are taking the GDP, the growth in the economy, if you are taking all the indices of development that you take, you will see that from 1999 to date, we've been going down the drain. In fact, the GDP for this year is said to be much lower, actually about less than half of what it was in 1960. In other words, this country, under this democracy, is actually going down the drain. And it is time to really ask, of what use, of what benefit is democracy if it cannot really deliver? Is democracy made for the people or people for democracy? If democracy is supposed to serve society, then it has failed in Nigeria. And it is time to start thinking of how do we really bring about a system that can work for us. I watched the debate from beginning to the end, and I was saddened by the fact that the elite that gathered there could not think out of the a box of Western frame of thinking. In other words, they were all, and especially the guest speaker himself, he was going round and round while admitting the failure of democracy. He was still saying that we should stick to democracy. And that doesn't make sense. I mean, you have admitted that this system has failed to deliver. And we are saying that we should still hang on to it.
Dr. Bugaje,
yes?
You're making some very apt points there, and I hope we'd have enough time to unpack, some of the very salient points that you've raised. Now, I'd like to begin with sort of bringing the conversation back to INEC, and then hopefully, if there's time, you can, kind of further unpack some of the statements you were making. But, Dr. Abati alluded to the fact that we're coming to the end of the tenure of the current gentleman at the helm of affairs at INEC, and unfortunately, there's no time for reform between now and then. Save some sort of executive order or something of that nature, which of course is highly unlikely to happen. Now, given the short time frame we now have to the beginning of the tenure of the next INEC chairman, whoever that person will be, a lot of the conversation has been around zoning and about which part of the country this person should come from. In your opinion, is this where the conversation should be in Nigeria in 2025, going towards an election in 2027? When we're trying to understand the qualities we want in an INEC chairman, should zoning or geopolitical zones be dominating the conversation?
Madam, I'm sure you know my view about this zoning. I've said it severally. I don't think this country, in this particular difficult times, with the experience we've had in the last 25 years, should really be stuck with any form of zoning. What we really require are competent people to fix our country. This country holds a great promise, not only for Africa, but actually for the world. In 25 years, this country is going to be the third largest country in the world. And it's going to have to, if it's going to survive and thrive, this is the time to plan. How do we feed this large number of people? How do we provide the infrastructure? How do we provide the jobs? How do we provide housing? How do we provide? This is the time we need competent leaders. It saddened me that we are still stuck with zoning. We have zoned for the last 25 years. Where has that taken this country to? Down the drain. Therefore, it is time to stop this childish idea and really face the reality. We need competent people. Nigeria has competent people, yes. Yeah, you need to be inclusive in whatever you do. But that's different from zoning. If people start taking turns to destroy this country, where is the country going to be? Because all those people who have come either from the north or from the south, all they have done is really to run this country down in the last 25 years. So I'm not impressed, and I don't think we should stop. I mean, we should continue with the discussion on zoning. It sort of speaks to our stupidity that this country is going down the drain, and we're still talking about zoning. For goodness sake, what we require are competent Nigerians, and there is no zone in this country that does not have competent Nigeria. Because we do not prioritize competence, that's why we are stuck with this stupidity of zoning. I think we have to get out of this frame of mind and start really dealing with the issues.
Dr. Bugaje, if the next INEC chairman were to come from the southwest, you wouldn't have a problem with that?
I wouldn't have, so long as he's competent.
Okay.
I wouldn't have any problem with anybody coming from anywhere, so long as he's competent. But you see, that also speaks to my first point. I don't think the president, and I don't mean this president, any president should have a hand in selecting the INEC chair. That's the point.
And that's a fair point to come in, Dr. Bugaje, because I totally agree with you. Sometimes we don't agree on many things, but on that, I think any election that is being, we don't agree on many things, but on that, I think any election that the president...
That's good enough.
I think any election that the president will participate in, and it will be the one to bring in who will be the INEC chair, I think is a sham election. It's just like a football club. I support Chelsea Football Club. It's just like Chelsea Football Club bringing the referee that will ref a match against Manchester United. That's what it feels like. I want to bring something to your attention. There's a Vanguard article on the 7th of September that says, bumpy road to 2024, politicians plot to rig INEC infiltrated and Tinubu shops for Yakubu's successor. The article talked about how politicians are plotting to rig. They said that they will print multiple serials of Form EC8A, B, and C forms. That's the election entry form, the result entry form, that they're going to ring through that method. They also said that they are orchestrating somebody that will emerge as the INEC chair that will work in their favor. They also talked about polling units and the likes and what will happen there. They're also talking about the alleged manipulation of the ongoing registration. How they are going to use this ongoing registration process to rig. They're also talking about, shopping for a suitable person that will replace the current INEC chief. It's an extensive article that I want a lot of Nigerians to read. What are you saying about that? Because they've already revealed some very key secrets. That's what the Vanguard has revealed. The article again is bumpy road to 2027 election. Politicians plot to rig INEC infiltrated Tinubu shop for Yakubu's successor.
Okay, I haven't read the article, but I've read a number of postings making either reference to the article or making similar points independently. And it speaks to the worries and concerns of Nigerians in the way. Now, this is, this can only be resolved by use of technology. Technology has the capacity to do that. But the law that enables or mandates INEC to do that is still pending. And this is something that does not need a constitutional amendment. This is something that can be done in the next 1, 2, 3 weeks if the president or if there is sufficient pressure from the public that this has to be done. So we have a way to do these things, to correct these things, but the political will to do it is not there. What does it take to push the president and those who are in the National Assembly who have the responsibility to do that is the pressure from the public. And this is part of the role that you as journalists need to do, clarifying, indicating the consequences, and then for the civil society to mobilize so that people can put pressure. This is how democracy is supposed to function. And there are consequences. If people rise to on a particular point, and those in power refuse to listen to the people, there are ways people can also react. We have seen what has happened in Nepal. We have seen what is brewing and coming up, time and time again in Kenya.